Hello, everyone. Happy Fed Wednesday. Are we fed up yet? Good morning, Sterling. Thank you for putting in the earnings. Good morning, Patrick. Chewy. Beat. Stock up. I'm not sure about that report this morning. I don't know if that one's true. We'll see. We will see. We will see. What else do we have going on? What else? Fed expected to cut rates. Yep. It's still not 90% yet, as of last time I checked. And you have in here 88%. I mean, that's very interesting. I'm going to be watching. I bet they will cut, but I'm going to be watching how many dissents there are. How many people say no, we should not cut? That's going to be very interesting. That is going to be interesting. I think that's going to be more important than the cut. GameStop was a huge miss on revenue. A huge miss on revenue. Good morning, Yogi. How are you doing? You're welcome for the updates. It sounds like you had a good playlist this morning. That's wow. That's a little intense one. You know, we got Ozzy and Pantera to start off the morning. Good morning, Jacob. Jake's annoyed by Fed days. What annoys you, Jake? The volatility? Good morning, Heinrich. Good morning, Odie Green. Good morning, David. Good morning. I still got to say good. Why isn't that working? Good morning, Zello. Good morning, Tony. Hello, Charles. Very erratic overnight. Well, stuff's all over the place ahead of the Fed meeting, but it's sort of range bound. Everything's sitting waiting for the Fed. What's the Fed gonna do? I'm very off center. Oh, my thing bumped. Oops. Thank you. There we go. Minor camera. Minor camera. Somebody was actually looking at me. I'm sorry, Sterling. That's a bad way to start your day, but thank you for allowing me to recenter myself. I was not centered and grounded. So thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you for people watching over on. Oh, Rusty put out. I'm looking over on there. Rusty, I was off kilter. Rusty, let me know too on Rumble. Thank you so much. All right. Again, I bumped the camera and didn't notice it. So thank you. What else we have going on? We already had the NBA mortgage information out. Not much going on there. Employment costs and wages. Not much going on there. We have the EIA numbers for crude, which has been really crappy trading just because it's not really falling through on anything. Good morning, holy. Then the big thing, interest rate decision 2 p.m. and then the press conference at 2:30. And I mean, a lot of people are betting on the hawkish cut, which means they'll cut, but then they'll say that could be it for quite some time. Again, they're going to cite data they don't have. We're data dependent, yet we don't have the data. But we don't need, Powell talks out of both sides of his mouth. Can we get rid of the Fed? Get rid of the Fed before it's taken over. Is Hassett going to be the next nominated head? You might as well just take it to zero rates now. All right. So going into the day, we got the mega caps mixed. Microsoft heading down, Palantir up, Oracle up. Those aren't Oracle and Palantir aren't mega caps, but Microsoft is. Google, Meta down, Tesla, Amazon up. Nvidia pretty flat. GE Verona up 10%. Warner Brothers Discovery up another 2%. A little risk off this morning into consumer defensive and financials and healthcare. Let's just verify I got that right looking at the groups. So whenever I see that, I always into a slight risk off morning, but again, it's head of the Fed. Good morning, Balaji. How are you doing? Car repossessions are an all-time high, and we know that front runs the housing market. We shall see, won't we? We shall see. Yeah, because people generally pay their mortgage last. They don't want to get kicked out of their house. Good morning, Royal Palms. Looking forward to longer term futures ideas. We'll get to that whole. And again, these are the kind of Fed weeks are a little tougher. That's why I've not been doing much intraday. Get rid of the Fed is rage bait. Dark. How's it rage bait? Getting rid of the Fed? I've been on that bandwagon since Greenspan. Oh, there we go. GE Verona boosts buyback to 10 billion from 6 billion, doubles dividend to 50 cents. Well, they should just pay out the whole thing instead of doing all these buybacks. Buybacks help the executives and the capital appreciation, but not necessarily the company. We have technology and comm services lagging today. Everything else is positive. That could shift by this afternoon. 89. Let's do a refresh. Let's do the good old refresh. Did that refresh or not? Let's do it this way. Let's do it this way to see where it sits. Let's come on. 89.9. So still not 90. 90% is considered the magic number, and it's still sitting at 89.9. Fear and greed still in fear mode. Schiller PE 4030. Earnings. Thank you again for putting a J. Jill. I think that was a beat. Was that a beat? I did look at that. Oracle and Adobe after close. That's especially Oracle with its credit default swaps and everything, its bounce back pattern so far. That could be interesting. And then remember, we also have Broadcom tomorrow afternoon. But Oracle and Adobe after the close. I don't like the institution of the Fed. I don't like the Federal Reserve. I think they lost their way a long time ago. Greenspan cared more about the markets, the stock market specifically, and it's gone downhill from there. They lost their goals on the man. By the way, their mandate is for stable prices, and it's written in their mandate as passed by Congress that stable price stability is 0%. It can fluctuate around there, but it's not 2%. It's not 2% inflation. They don't even follow their own friggin' mandates. It's a clown show. Good morning, Anissa. So yeah, I want the whole thing disbanded, and I want a rule put. I'd want a. If we're not going to disband it, I want a very limited Fed that sticks to their mandates. That you know what, you can come up with a rule at this point. Not this thing, and the dual mandate's also a joke because price stability and inflation, and they're going to all modify it again. You got the rates they can modify, but now you got QE, Operation Twist, Operation this, Operation that. What a joke. All right. Key things I'm watching. We got so far 2-day pullback, but we're still holding above key support. 80, 68, 30 area. That's if we're going to break down. If we did break down, then I'd be looking at 6,800 to 6,810. Only start get below with 6,800 is if I really sit up and take notice to the downside. Because then we've broken all the short-term levels of support, of major support. To the upside, I'm looking at 68.65. We've got to either break above that with momentum or break above that and prove that it can become support. Then I'm looking at 68.90 to 6,900. And then 69.25 still. So that's what I'm looking at to the upside. And I'm not going to do stupid this morning. It's got to really either get something going above 68.65 where I can then start ratcheting up a stop, or hold and get some kind of bottoming pattern around 68.30 or potentially closer to the bottom of the rotation zone. Other than that, if we get downside momentum, that's the only thing that if we start getting below the rotation zone, that will make me sit up and take notice to the short side. The NASDAQ. Hold on, I lost my comment window. There we go. Let's see. Let's see. Do you think Powell has it in him to stick it to the man, Trump, before he leaves and not cut? No, I don't. No, I don't. And I'm not a Powell fan either. Either way, I could care less. I don't want the Fed. If you're going to have the Fed, I do not want it to be politicized. Period. That is even worse than our current Fed. Could Hassett exasperate a bubble? Yeah. You know, if you did what Trump wants with 1% rates, think about it. Maybe their new mandate is maximum unemployment. No, they're just, the dual mandates really screwed up that Congress passed in the 70s, and it's just all, and you know what? There's so many. They're out of control with the amount of tools they have. Sorry about to get off in there. Serious question here. Since basically everyone's retirement is now dependent on the stock market, since pensions are so rare, will the markets ever be allowed to operate naturally again? Yes, because you can only intervene so long. You can keep it going for longer than you think. But eventually, look, Japan will eventually crack, even again. So, at some point, there'll be a worldwide debt crisis, which the intervention is not going to work. Uh, so the Nasdaq for me is 25,720 area, not exactly. That's what I'm watching for it to sustain above there. If we break down the major area that I'm keeping an eye on is closer to 25,485 to 25,500, and my key line in the sand is 25,350. So that's what I'm looking at there. Again, the market's getting tired. So we could still see some more pullback today, but we still have weekly cycles rising, and we still got the weekly rotation zone. That's why, and when I say I can't get overly short, there could be a scalp short, but nothing I want to sustain and hold just yet. Nothing I want to sustain and hold, because even this pullback from, beginning of November, then we bounced up, had a percent B weekly buy pattern. Yes, we are in major double top territory. If we start trading, starting to get below some of these key levels, closer to the bottom of the weekly rotation zone, that's when I will reevaluate the long stance, because the trend is still up. And I'm not trying to call a short-term top with this trend still up. Going to be very interesting, the language that Powell uses today. The Dow, I'm watching this 47,540 area. If we break below that, I'm watching closer to 47,400 to 47,350. The breakout area I'm using is 47,690 area. Russell still in the channeling pullback. You see the pokes above the channel? This is what I'm talking about. If you're trying to trade the breaks of the channel, when I say it's got to sustain, when I see it just break above here, break above, and it comes back down the level and can't sustain, and it turns back into resistance. See how it broke back below the channel and turned back into resistance? I wouldn't want to hold anything. Again, if it breaks out and then drops back down rapidly like this, if you're trying to trade short-term breaks and it does not hold it, don't hold it. Take the quick little loss. Take the quick little loss and reassess. Okay? That's what I'm saying. On anything, when I want to sustain a level, if it breaks above it but can't sustain it, don't try to hold and hope. Hold and hope is not a good trading strategy. VIX continuing to run up, heading into the meeting. DAX closed above the 62.5 yesterday with pulling back. So any pullback with the hooking up 50 in the rising rotation zone, I'll look for potential new long setups. In the short term, yields letting a little pause today, but they were climbing earlier. So even on pullbacks, looking for yields to continue to climb. The 30-year, there is a little minor double top pattern. So we'll keep an eye on that. Does that invalidate anything with this massive head and inverse head and shoulders double, or the massive inverse head and shoulders? This one, this massive inverse head and shoulders, no. You can see here, it just pulls it back slightly. So that does not invalidate the other pattern again. Now, what could cause that to trigger? Well, if Powell starts talking about other things like they're going to start buying longer dated treasuries and not call it QE and not call it, who knows what they're going to do. But if he were to announce something like that, you could see a quick little drop in longer term rates. Don't know if he's going to do that or not. Good morning, Mark. Crude, as I said, breaking back down below this 58 support area. If we really sustain down below there, 57 is the next key area. We're still, the weekly rotation zone still slight trending down. But there's just haven't been a lot of good setups in here. Natty Gas, I'm going to be starting to watch. We've come back into support, even though yesterday closed below the daily rotation zone. We've returned to the weekly rotation zone. So I'm going to be looking for potential setups. There might be one with a percent beat buy bar tomorrow. 40. This would be a secondary reaction. Let's say these lows hold today. And when I mean secondary reaction, again, what are my first key target areas? This 497 to 510 area. So gold, why isn't gold rolling over yet? Well, it has a might still. This pattern is still counts against the rotation zone. But is there a major topping pattern in gold? Well, for dark screen, you still have a massive potential double top, which would be out of the way of the weekly rotation zone should it trigger. But in the short term, you have a minor pattern, but that backs into the weekly rotation zone. In order for gold to really break down, it's got to get below 3,900, not above, below 3,900. So silver, looking on getting a, well, all right, we've talked about the sideways correction, rising 8 EMA. We had the breakout. I updated, by the way, these harmonics are updated. That's why you see them different than yesterday. I updated them. We got the breakout yesterday. Was looking for the next key area once we got above 60.30, which was the cluster between 61.35 and 61.42. And silver getting, not saying it has to stop in the short term, but getting still very overextended from its rotation zone. Would I be shorting this thing? Not with Coco's money. 63.19 is the next key target should it continue. Again, there's no shorts. Now we are running out. We're running divergences up here. It is got waning momentum, but there's no, besides possibly breaking back down below 61, there's no key topping pattern. End of 2026 silver target? End of next year? I think you're going to see a reversal. I think you're going to start seeing some market sell-off in 2026, period, and it's also going to affect the metals. I think you're going to see, remember, everything, it's always different this time. It wasn't different here. You know, it's not going to be different here. Does this mean it can't keep going higher? It can keep going higher in the short term, but I'm going to be watching for a major reversal topping pattern next year. So do I have a target yet? No, I don't, because I need to see, once we start putting a more significant top, I need to then measure the harmonics. But I would not be surprised to see silver back below 30. at some point next year. Would not surprise me at all. Copper, back to the daily rotation zone. Still looking for potential longs after the Fed gets out of the way. Again, depending on if it still holds the rotation zone. Dollar index, not much new to talk about unless we trigger. I'm either watching if we continue with the confirmed double top, short-term double top, not the long-term double bottom. I'm watching for a further pullback for long positions. If we break above last week's high, I'm looking for a %B buy entry because that would also probably invalidate this triggered double top. That's what I'm looking for with the dollar index. Euro, we have the no follow through yet on the triggered double bottom. The Bitcoin still stuck in the channel. Not much new. Ethereum, though, we had the triggered double bottom, and it's now hit the first and second targets. So Ethereum first and second targets are hit. Spiders. Key support level for me, 681.35. If we start breaking below that, I'll watch for a breakdown closer to the bottom of the rotation zone, closer to 677. 677.80 area. If we break above 685.35, that's my key breakout level. The Qs, I'm watching 621. If we break below there, I'm watching for, there's still a gap left behind, closer to 617.17. So that would be a target on a breakdown closer to the bottom of the rotation zone. My breakout level is 625.65. What else? And then I got to wrap this up going into the open. Tesla, still nothing besides the first target hit on the double bottom. So it's definitely raised a stop in Tesla. We've got Oracle into earnings, getting close to the rotation zone on the weekly basis again. So if we do pop up with their earnings, I'm keeping an eye closer to 238.50. It's sort of in no man's land right now. So there's not a great setup. We've got daily cycles back to the top and overbought in the short term, but it all depends. If it does beat on earnings, I'll watch for the next rollover play on any gap up. If we miss, I'm looking how it reacts at 200. And we also have Adobe. Adobe has returned to the top of the weekly rotation zone. Last week was a %B buy, had to be traded on the breakout, and it's already hit the targets. If Adobe pops above the weekly rotation zone, targets are 365 and then about 380. If it breaks down, remember, we've already ticked off the 87.5 rule, key support. The only way I look for future shorts in Adobe is if it breaks below 316. The Grinch will enter the chat this December. The Grinch is going to watch this live stream? Wow, I'd be honored if the Grinch tuned in. So, that's where we sit. I don't have anything else to talk about. Again, don't do stupid on the Fed day. Prepare for some volatility, especially during the press conference, because that's how you're going to know if it's a hawkish cut or a dovish cut or the first cut is the deepest, whatever. Last 10 weeks have been trading between 68.15 and 68.93 in the ES. Last 10 weeks. 68.15. Well, we broke down. I'm confusing that statement. I mean, we've been going a whole lot of. We broke down though, and then we've come back up. So it's maybe you meant 10 days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You probably meant 10 days. Yeah, thank you, Sterling. Days. Thank you. Yeah. We've gone a whole bunch of nowhere. A whole bunch of nowhere. So, uh, that's why I'm still paying attention to the bottom of the rotation zone area, even if we break down. Now, to reiterate, if we start losing 6,800, then 6750 and the 50 EMA become key. We start losing that gets interesting to me. And I'd flip around the harmonics then. And the next key level would be 6715. Oops, I flipped them the wrong way. Hold on. Sorry, I had them right. 6715 and then 6667. If we start losing the 6750 area. Could you look at ITA real quick? ITA would technically be a neutral mode for me, and only this is a very significant level right here. 205.15. If I was looking to get long it, this is not a well-formed head and shoulders. It's probably technically correct. I'd have to look at a couple things. So it's probably technically triggered and hit the first target. The only thing that would make me bullish in the short term is if we could turn 205.15 into support. Other than that, it's triggered a asymmetric head and shoulders and hit the first target, so this thing could still head lower. This thing could still head lower. The only thing that would make me change my mind, again, it's got to turn 205.15 into support. With that, we can look at that again tomorrow if you want, Ted. I will talk to everyone later. Have a wonderful, wonderful trading day, and don't do anything stupid ahead of the Fed meeting. Bye for now.